that the one with the,
Yes.
okay. We'll all just wait for John.
That's what
Hold us up.
that's what everyone does.
Just like the old days.
Sorry, the battery in my microphone's dead.
Why don't you just give us your name and spelling of your name, please?
You don't know it by now after all these times we've been here. I'm happy to. So,
Thank you.
Dr. Patricia Schnabel-Ruppert, it's Schnabelruppert, Commissioner of Health of Rockland.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Give me the go-ahead.
We're good to go.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining me today. I'm Dr. Patricia Schnabel-Ruppert, the Commissioner of Health of Rockland County, with your measles outbreak update. As you can see, the number of cases has grown. As I tell you about them, you'll understand we currently have 40 confirmed cases at this time and 11 suspected cases under investigation. That's why we're taking proactive steps to ensure the safety of students within our community. And this is going to relate mostly to the students at this time. Effective Monday, November 5th, all schools within the village of New Square and any school with less than 70% vaccination rate to MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, within the geographical area that's affected by the measles outbreak, and that is Spring Valley and Muncie, they will be required to keep unvaccinated or undervaccinated students home until 21 days have passed since the last confirmed case of measles in Rockland. This action is in addition to the letter that I issued on October 18th and others that I have subsequently issued to keep students home who have had confirmed cases of measles for their unvaccinated or undervaccinated students. So what we're saying is prior to this, those schools that had confirmed cases, so they would have had exposures, needed to keep their students home who weren't protected. At this point in time, I am requiring, as of Monday, that all students in the schools that are in New Square and schools that are in Spring Valley and Muncie, in the Spring Valley and Muncie who have less than a 70% vaccination rate, and they know who they are, we've contacted them, they must keep their children out of school until they get the MMR, okay? So different than the first time. The first time when we met and we spoke about this, students who do not have the proper immunizations must remain out of school for 21 days after the last exposure. And that's for schools where there is a confirmed case. In this new group that I'm telling you about, we are allowing them to return if the children get their MMR. They don't have to wait the 21 days. Having said that, if there is a confirmed case in their school, everything reverts back to the former, which is they must keep their children home for 21 days. Okay? Unless they've had 2 MMRs at that point, if they're in the age group that requires it, which is most of the students from kindergarten through 12th grade. So this new order now applies to 15 schools, with 10 affected by the previous order. We continue to encourage everyone to keep up to date with their MMRs and to protect them in case of any future exposure of measles in Rockland. At this point, we consider all of Rockland potentially exposed, and we need to do something broader, something stronger. So I've been asking for the last couple of weeks to have everyone who lives and works in Rockland have their immunization levels examined. Call their doctor, call their other health providers, check into their immunization records. We've listed it all on our website, and I can again tell you today, for those who are born before 1957, they're considered presumptively immune to the measles. For those who have had 2 MMRs, same thing. They're considered presumptively immune to the measles. Now, 1 measles vaccine gives you about 93% immunity. 2 gives you 97%. So we may still see some breakthrough as a result of that couple of percent that aren't covered. But for the most part, in New York State and in Rockland County, we have an immunization rate for MMR over 90%. So that gives us the herd immunity that we've spoken about before, where you protect everyone else around those who cannot be protected. For example, pregnant women who are not immune, babies who are less than 6 months of age, and those who are immunosuppressed or on, for example, transplant drugs, cancer, chemotherapy medications. If someone has had a measles titer, I've been asked a lot of questions about titers of late, and if it states that they're immune, that's well and good. I don't want everybody to run out and get a titer. First of all, it's not even possible to do. And the truth is 2 MMRs, if you check your records, 2 MMRs trump the titers. That's more important. So to be protected, okay, most of cases of measles are occurring now we're seeing a lot of children and students, which is why we're doing what we're doing. But to be protected, okay, those who are 12 to 15 months of age normally get their first MMR. At this point with an outbreak, we are offering the vaccine to those 6 months of age and up. Below 6 months, they don't make enough immunity, so we are offering that. That, as I've mentioned before, is MMR 0. That means that doesn't count for their series. They still would need to get another MMR between 12 and 15 months. And yes, it's worth doing that. For those children who are not yet 4, 1 MMR is considered appropriate for their age. Again, having said that, in an outbreak, we are offering the second MMR, as long as it's 28 days after the first one, we're offering the second to those who are less than 4 years of age. Then they don't need another one at 4, so they get a break at that point. And that's their 2 MMRs for life. College students are required to have 2 MMRs, so again, a lot of the students in our colleges in the county, most probably already have them and should have them actually to be there. So that's what we're doing as far as offering, okay, vaccinations. We have pods coming up. I have 2 of them this week. We have one tomorrow at the Community Outreach Center. See, it's Outbreak Center too now. And in Muncie on Remsen Avenue, and one on Friday morning. And I think you have the list of when they are. Tomorrow, I can actually even say it so you hear. It is from 4 to 7 at the Community Outreach Center. On Friday, it's from 10 to 1:30. We have others we're planning. They just weren't ready at this time, so we'll get back to you on that. They are no cost, and we're happy to administer them right on site. It doesn't matter the age as far as, you know, even babies. We can take all comers. I want to talk for a few minutes, though, about complications of the measles, because something that's come back to me this week, some questions were related to, well, it's just an itchy red rash, or it's a red rash that someone's uncomfortable, it's a red rash that someone has a fever, and they're going to get better. We got better when we were kids, and they're going to get better. The truth is, I don't know that people realize just how serious measles can be. And I'm going to give you some numbers. Having said the numbers, you'll have to understand, if it happens to your child, if it happens to you, it's 100% to you. But I'll give you the numbers as they actually are. So complications occur in about 30% of measles cases. Most commonly, you see diarrhea in about 8%, and a number of them become dehydrated and have other issues. Pneumonia is seen in 6%, and it's the primary cause of death from measles. That could be bacterial or viral pneumonia. Encephalitis, that's swelling of the brain, 0.1%. Otitis, that's ear infection, 7%. You can see meningitis. We can see seizures. Seizures occur in less than 1%. Death occurs in 0.2%. Sounds like a small number, but it's a worrisome number still. Because again, when it happens to your family, it's 100% to you. And as we see more cases, there's a higher probability. We already have 2 children who have been hospitalized with the measles, and one of them is in intensive care. For pregnant women who are not immune, what do we see? Like, why should they have to worry? They should worry because we see more miscarriages, we see premature labor, and we see low birth weight infants. For those who are immunocompromised, we worry because they get severe cases of the measles with a very prolonged, protracted course. So we need to protect them with the herd immunity that I mentioned before. Rarely we see hemorrhagic measles. They get temps of 105, 106, okay? High fevers, seizures, delirium, respiratory distress, and then hemorrhages into their skin and their mucous membranes. And there's another thing that we see, and you may read about, small percentage, but if you read about subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, we call it SSPE. It's rare, but when it occurs, it's really bad. It occurs in people about a month to up to 27 years after they have the measles, and the average is about 7 years. It's due to persistent measles virus in the body. Why they persist and others don't, I don't have the answer, but it's bad. Happens about 5 to 10 people in a million. You see deterioration of their behavior, ataxia, that's like an awkwardness. We see seizures, and they die. Very, very, very sad and very unfortunate. So I wanted to remind you of all this because measles is more than a red, uncomfortable rash. I'll take any questions you have.
Can you talk about, you guys have been doing so much outreach and hosting these clinics. Why do you think we're seeing the numbers of measles cases still increasing, and do you think that the outreach is helping?
I hope our outreach is helping, but we're trying other ways now to strategically maybe get to the groups that need it. I think we've seen a lot of delayed vaccination in the county, and as a result, people are not immunized enough. We're working with different groups in many ways throughout the county, and we've reorganized some of the strategy, including these further exclusions from schools. So hopefully that helps. We're also trying to get the information out about what measles is really like and about the complications. And the complications are seen, I just wanted to add something, so it's a good time to do it. I brought this little chart for you, not the best chart, but you can see the complications are higher in those under 5, which we've been seeing, and those more than 20 years of age, which are still young people, of course. And this just kind of shows that. Again, I apologize for it not being the best graph I've seen. This comes from the CDC if you want to look yourself. But it's those groups that we need to get to, which is also why we're re-strategizing to the student population as well.
So you said under 5 and over 20, that's one of the.
Under 5 and over 20, right, right. Now, mostly in Rockland, we have a good vaccination rate. We have about 90%, and so does the state. So that's actually, the state's higher, that 98%. So that's very good. But we have certain groups that tend not to vaccinate or tend to delay vaccinations, and in those groups you see, of course, much lower rates, and that's what we're trying now to get to.
And do they tend not to vaccinate because of religious, reasons or things like that?
There are some religious reasons. You always have medical exemptions. There may be reasons why somebody can't get a live vaccine, and their doctor send the note in. And actually, we're asking them at this point, working with the pediatricians, to ask them if they would just take another look at that and see, with this outbreak, is that something that really is necessary or not, just to reevaluate them. For the religious exemptions, I have met with the rabbis, and I've asked them directly if there's a religious reason why people should not be vaccinated, and the answer was no. So ask them to also speak to their community members as well. Then you have the people who just don't vaccinate because they don't understand, or they're very adamant about not taking any vaccinations. We're working with them as best we can, but it does not cause developmental delay. It does not cause a child to walk late. It does not cause autism. That's all been disproved. And yet you still have people who believe what they want to believe. So I guess if the rest of us get our MMRs or have our vaccines already, we're protecting them as well.
The 2 kids, you said 2 children is it currently hospitalized for the measles and one is currently in intensive
Yes.
care?
Last I know, yes.
What's your level of concern with adults or parents, like parents of these students?
We have parents also who are not immunized or who have had measles. So we have it in families.
So for the 40, the breakdown, do you have a breakdown of how many kids and how many adults are in that?
Right now, there's more children than adults, but we also have some young adults as well.
But is there any concrete breakdown that we can get?
I have the numbers, but it's not something we normally give out anyway. More children than adults would be sufficient.
So Commissioner, 21 days after the last case, still seeing cases, so these kids that are out could be out for a prolonged period of time.
21, 42, 63, etc. Yes, they could. It could go into months. Yes, it could. Right, 63 days already 2 months, right? So, yes.
If it's a measles problem, why require the MMR? Why not just let them get the measles? Because some people are concerned about the mix and the multiple reactions to the multiple vaccines and all that sort of stuff. Why do they have to have the MMR?
The measles vaccine alone is really no longer available. Years ago when I was in practice, we used to keep the bottles in the refrigerator for each of them separately. Really, that's not how they're made or available anymore. And if you have the 3-in-1, the level of immunity that you make as a result, your active immunity is excellent. So it really is provided as all 3.
Said there's 15 schools total that are now.
15 schools, yes, plus the 10 that I previously had sent letters to.
So is it a total of 15? Or
No, it would be
15
25.
plus 10.
It would be 25.
Okay, so 15 are in Village of New Square? Or is it the other way around?
You know, New Square's post office is real. They have Spring Valley and Muncie, so I just,
The borders, yeah. Okay. So just to clarify, it's all schools in New Square, including some in Spring Valley and Muncie, and it's a total of 25.
correct,
Right.
correct. But in different ways. 15 for those that we are requiring as of Monday, that they send the kids out to get their MMRs and not can keep them in school until they get them. For those are schools that do not have a known exposure at this time. The 10 that I'm mentioning, we know have had an exposure in the school, and we're stricter with them at this point.
Is the MMR shot the only vaccine that these students need to get if they want to go, that the schools are recommending, or
At this point, the MMR is what with the outbreak is what we're focusing on. We're taking a look at others that may be needed, but that's not for today.
And I know I've asked before, just a clarification, the MMR1 versus the MMR, like the two vaccines, MMR1 versus MMR2.
So it's the same vaccine. You're just giving a booster of it so that the body can make better immunity as a result, actively make the immunity. So the first MMR, same bottle, it can be the same lot number or whatever, but it's got to be 28 days apart. When we reconstitute it, that's with the sterile diluent that we use. So that would be the first MMR. You could use from the same lot number if you still have it in a month, and you can give the second in the same way. And that increases the person's immunity from 93 to 97%. And that's the best we really are going to get.
Okay. Some families I know when they've gone to the measles clinics when you had them a couple of weeks ago, they were asked about international travel.
We always ask about travel. Yes, absolutely.
Just because
Yes.
you think that's just how.
Well, it's important because the cases we initially saw, our primary cases were from international travel. Yes, that's exactly right. Most of the cases we're seeing now are what we call secondary cases. So those that we see who were exposed to those who had the primary cases. And actually, we're seeing tertiary cases at this point. So 3 levels down.
What's the status of measles in the country elsewhere? Are there outbreaks other than Rockland County?
You know, there are some. I know in Brooklyn, they're having an outbreak now. And certainly in Europe, out of the country, there's in Europe and in Israel. But as close as Brooklyn, I do know of.
Commissioner, do you know how many vaccines you have given out in all those clinics?
I can tell you the total number that have been given out in the county without the pediatricians who are helping tremendously. So between us and Raful, which is the health center in New Square, which has been excellent, an excellent partner in all of this, we've given out more than 2,100 doses, and they've given out the majority of those. We've probably given out in the hundreds, and they've given out, more than 1,000, probably 1,900.
Do you have an idea of how many kids are not vaccinated?
Depends on the school. We look at schools because, again, those born before 1957, they wouldn't need it, right? So we would have college students, for example, as one population, the students younger than that as a population. And what we're looking at now is each of the schools, because they have to report their status to see what their rates are, and that's why we're focusing on the less than 70% to start with. I will expand that as I need to.
But do you know how many kids are?
The number of children, I don't have offhand at this point. As far as what this 70% will give us, and all those in New Square is probably more than 1,000 though, if that helps you. It'll affect them initially.
What is titer again?
It's a blood test to check the level of immunity.
Okay.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you all. Appreciate you getting the word out again. I feel like this is like the weekly thing. But we'll do it until we don't need to, right? Thank you.
And the vaccine works that quickly? You said that as soon as they get the shot, they can go back to school?
Well, that's different. If you have, the vaccine doesn't take place.
Oh.
What you do is it takes a couple of weeks to develop the immunity. Or what we're doing is, rather than taking all the children home, we're saying, well, if you don't have a case in your school,